So then when a person starts feeling the emotions of their future, in that instant, their heart begins to respond very differently. We've measured this. The heart begins to become more coherent. It starts to beat in a more rhythmic pattern. And that by living by the emotions of fear and resentment and frustration and impatience actually causes the heart to beat out of rhythm. And people spend 70% of their time of their lives living by those stress hormones. Living in stress is living in survival. So the fundamental question is, can you teach people then how to create a more coherent brain? And can you teach them how to regulate their heart and be able to control how their heart responds? We are literally in a new era right now. And this era is about information. And in an age of information, ignorance is a choice. Technology affords us the ability to research anything we want to research. And every time you learn something new, you make new synaptic connections in your brain. In fact, learning is making new connections. And the Nobel Prize laureate Kandel in the year 2000 found that when people learn just one bit of information and they concentrated on it for an hour, they doubled the number of connections in their brain from 1,300 connections to 2,600 connections. But if they didn't review that information, if they didn't think about it, if they didn't repeat it over and over in their mind, those connections pruned apart within hours or days. So if learning is making new synaptic connections, then remembering is maintaining and sustaining those connections, keeping those connections in a long-term relationship. And that information then begins to become installed in the circuitry in your brain. The question is, though, what do you do with that information? That if you can then take that information and apply it, personalize it, demonstrate it, initiate it in some way, if you can get your behaviors to match your intentions, if you can get your actions equal to your thoughts, if you can get your mind and body working together, you're going to have a new experience. An experience then enriches the philosophical circuits in the brain, laying down networks of neurons. And the moment those neurons string into place, the brain makes a chemical. And that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And the moment you feel like a leader, the moment you feel more unlimited, the more you feel gratitude from some experience, now you're teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind is intellectually understood. And we can say that knowledge is for the mind and experience is for the body. And in that moment, you are embodying the truth. And for one moment, your mind and body are aligned to a new destiny. And it is the environment and the interaction in the environment that actually changes genes. And we've measured this, that in 4 days, people can change their genetic expression if they begin to think differently, make new choices, do different things, create new experiences, create new feelings. They will change their genetic destiny. So then, in that moment then, if you've done it once, or if you're training somebody to modify their behaviors, and they're able to do it once, then they should be able to do it again, yes or no? Your hormones and even your genetic expression is equal to how you think, how you act, and how you feel. But if you can teach people how to change the way they think, change the way they act, and change the way they feel, they will begin to create a new life. So then most people try to create a new personal reality has the same personality, and it doesn't work. That you literally have to become someone else. Now think about this. I said to change is to be greater than your body. The body as the mind that's been conditioned over time, emotionally and habitually. To change then is also to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the circumstances in your life. And every great person in history understood this, that they were defined by a vision of the future, so much so that they began to live as if that future reality was already manifesting. They weren't waiting for it to happen, they were creating it. So then when it becomes time to change, the hardest part about change is not making the same choices you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, get ready. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. There's going to be some uncertainty. You're not going to be able to predict the next moment. Now, most people say, well, look, I've suffered for the last 20 years. Today, I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to blame. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. No more self-pity. I'm just going to stop. Now, they've been thinking and feeling this way for 30 years, and all of a sudden, they're going to stop. First 2 hours goes really well. Then they break a fingernail, or they run out of toilet paper and their day is ruined. And all of a sudden then the body is saying, hey, you have been feeding the same chemistry to this body by feeling the same emotion, and now there's a disruption. Now remember, the body's the mind. So the moment the person makes a different choice, the body starts saying, well, let me influence the mind. And all of a sudden a person starts hearing these voices in their head. You know, start tomorrow. This doesn't feel right. It's your mother's fault. It's your ex's fault. I'll never change. It's too hard. And if people respond to that thought as if it's true, that same thought leads to the same choice leads to the same behavior creates the same experience produces the same familiar emotion, it reaffirms their identity, and they say, this feels familiar. That going from the old self to the new self is the neurological, it is the biological, it is the chemical, it is the hormonal genetic death of the old self. And in that void, in that unknown, that is the perfect place to create from. That means then, people say to me, I am in change and I can't predict my future. And I always say the same thing to them. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Not from the known, but from the unknown. What thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? What behaviors do you want to demonstrate in one day? And the act of closing your eyes, this is neuroscience now, teach people how to do this and have them mentally rehearse what they're going to do. We do this in corporations. All of a sudden the person gets so present what they're about to do, and they start rehearsing it in their mind, that their brain doesn't know the difference between what's going on out there and what's going on in here. And all of a sudden they start to install the neurological hardware in their brain in preparation for that day. The brain looks like they've already done it. And if you keep doing it over and over again, the hardware becomes a software program, and all of a sudden this person starts acting like a happy person. Well, they installed the circuits to do that. They start thinking in new ways. There's no magic there. Can you teach a person how to emotionally condition their body into the future? Which means then they're not going to wait for their life to change to feel gratitude or to feel wholeness, to feel love. That is an antiquated model of reality. People spend their whole life waiting for something outside of them to change how they feel inside of them. But when they begin to emotionally teach their body what that future feels like, their body as their unconscious mind begins to believe that they're living in that future reality in the present moment. And the side effect of that now is they start feeling like it's already happened. And now they're no longer looking for change in their life. They are the change in their life.